Now, the question is it time that we cash in on N'Golo Kante? With reports suggesting that both Barcelona and Real Madrid are turning their attentions to our World Cup winning, Premier League winning, world-class midfielder in N'Golo Kante. Well, is it time that we put aside sentimentality and focus on the cold, analytical truths? N'Golo Kante has suffered injuries throughout the entire year. He hasn't played consistent football, and have those injuries finally taken a toll on the player? And for those reasons, is it wise that we cash in on him and reinvest that money throughout the entire team, because Lampard has some strong rebuilding to do in the next season? In today's video, I'll be weighing up the arguments from both sides of the debate. People that think that it's best to sell Kante to improve the team, and people that think that it's crazy to even suggest the idea of selling one of our only world-class players. This is definitely a massive video, so I strongly suggest that you stay right to the end so you can hear my final conclusions in this N'Golo Kante debate. But before I get into anything, today's video is brought to you by the OneFootball app. So as I'm strongly suggesting in every single video, if you have not given the app an opportunity or a chance just yet, well, you have no excuses, my friends. We're all self-isolating, you're missing your football, and the OneFootball app is the perfect app to use to get all the latest news across Europe straight on your phone. The OneFootball app is one of the best football companion apps and hubs to have right now, so if you guys want to get it for yourselves, you'll find it in the link in the description below. And now, before we start with things, let's briefly talk about these Barcelona, Real Madrid and N'Golo Kante links. Now, Mundo Deportivo are the Spanish outlet breaking the story, and they're suggesting that Barcelona and Real Madrid are now turning their attention to N'Golo Kante. Barcelona are now in the market for a new medium for their midfield. It looks like Arturo Vidal and Rakitic will both be leaving at the end of this season, and Barcelona want to strengthen that area by going for an upgrade player. The report suggests that Barcelona are hoping to use this current pandemic situation to hopefully find some bartering negotiation possibilities. Barcelona feel confident because last season when they signed Neto from Valencia, they offered Citizen as a part exchange to get that deal complete. Now, I'm sure that you guys can guess what player Barcelona are hoping to use as a bartering tool to sign Kante. Now, you guys, I'm saying it straight. There was literally nothing new in regards to the Coutinho story. It seems that us, Leicester City, Tottenham and Arsenal are the clubs interested in signing him. I guess the only new piece of news is that Coutinho does want to return back to the Premier League. So it seems like Barcelona are hoping to offer Coutinho plus money to potentially sign N'Golo Kante. Now, the cynical part of me is thinking, this sounds like slow news day. Now, the same day they released this story, they also released an article suggesting that Real Madrid are now turning their attentions to him to replace Casemiro. And they released another article detailing Kante's history, as if you can't find it already on Wikipedia. 3 Kante stories, one for Barca fans, one for Madrid fans. I guess the clicks really do reign in Spain right now. Now that we know this current story, let's bring this video back to the debate. Do we sell Kante? Now, the arguments for selling Kante are that he's become injury prone. He's 29 years old, and we know that once you're 29, once you're nearly 30 years old, then it means that your career is basically over. Now, the 2 prominent reasons for selling Kante is, number 1, he doesn't really suit Lampard's system, and maybe we're best to reinvest that money from his sale back into players that really fit the footballing style that Lampard wants. You know, Kante's been used out of position under Frank, and under Sarri, he's been used out of position for 2 seasons. Maybe this highlights that Kante is actually the issue. The most prevalent argument for selling Kante is that he's become too injury prone. He's barely played this season. He's getting recurring injuries time and time again. Maybe this is a clear sign that Kante has finally reached his physical peak. Now, this is where this video does begin. It's deep dive into Kante, into his injury history, before I give my conclusion in regards to whether it's actually right to sell Kante and reinvest that money back into the team. Now, as you guys can see on screen, this is Kante's recent injury history. I'm using Transfer Market to get this info, and it starts to paint a very interesting picture. As we can see, Kante's injuries don't really become a thing until the 18-19 season, And from this point on, I'm going to break down how Sarri, Lampard and Didier Deschamps have all played roles and should take responsibility for how Kante has got these current injury issues in his career.
For every team, probably not for Liverpool, but for all the other. I made a mistake because probably today he had to rest. Sometimes it's very difficult to put on the bench a player so important like Hazard, like Kante, but you have to do it. Otherwise you risk. And I have to say that I made a mistake. We want to be at the end of the Premier League, because we want to play the next Champions League, and we consider in a different way the Europa League. The Europa League is a very important competition, and we want to win the Europa League because we think that we deserve to win a trophy in this season. So we have two targets. Ciao.
Okay.
This was Sarri speaking at the end of the game against Watford. In that game, Kante came off with an injury after 9 minutes at the start of the game, and this meant that he subsequently missed the second leg game versus Frankfurt and the final game of the season at home against Leicester City. Now the plan at the time was to hope and pray that Kante was going to be fully fit for the must-win Europa League final in Baku against Arsenal. 3 days before the final, reports unfortunately came out detailing how Kante picked up a knee injury during a training session.
Maurizio, it's William Schomburg from Reuters. Could you give us an update, please, on the situation with N'Golo Kante? Will he be fit to play tomorrow evening?
Very little problem, but with his knee. The problem is the timing, because we have only 4 days. We are trying, but we are trying. It's not really a very serious injury. We have the problem of the 3-4 days to try to recover him, but at the moment we don't know. We will try. We will try till the last moment. So we will try tomorrow, but we don't know at the moment.
Now at the time, here's what Cesc Fabregas had to say. Cesc said, well, it is a risk, definitely. He just came back from a hamstring injury. He could only train with the team for a couple of days, and straight away, he got a knock to his knee. He's probably trying to tell the doctor how he's feeling. He went the last 3 days without training. Yesterday was a little train. This morning he woke up feeling a bit better, so he will warm up and see how he feels. Now after reading this, you would think that this would definitely rule out Kante for the Europa League final. Nope, of course not. In just 3 days later, Kante is in that starting lineup against Arsenal, and just by looking at his face, you can tell that Kante is looking even surprised to be playing in this game. Kante's match rating for that game was scored by Who Scored, and they gave him a 6.6. So this implies that his involvement in the game wasn't too bad, but it wasn't too great. What I found really interesting about that game though was that Kante still completed the full 90 minutes. Even though we were 3-0 up at the 65th minute, and even though we were 4-1 up at the 72nd minute. Instead, Sarri subbed off Kovacic to replace him with Barkley, and miraculously, Kante finished the entire game. Now, what happens just 5 days later? Kante's knee injury did reignite, and this consequently meant that it affected his pre-season under Frank Lampard. During the time, Kante did travel with the team for the Japanese tour against Kawasaki Frontale, and at the time, Lampard thought it was best for Kante to return back home and to continue his rehabilitation back at Cobham. Now, I like to be objective, and for contextual reasons at the time, Sarri was under a lot of pressure. It was so public that his job was potentially going to be jeopardized, and naturally, if Sarri wanted to keep his job, he knew that winning that game against Arsenal had to be done at all costs. Not only was it the threat of Sarri losing his job, but this was the first opportunity in Sarri's career at winning a trophy. And in the end, this wasn't an opportunity that Sarri could pass down. I think we can all admit though that Sarri left Lampard with no favours. Sarri left Lampard with the Kante that was already injured. So now let's turn to Lampard and let's see how Lampard handled N'Golo Kante. For me, a game that was indicative of Kante's overuse was that infamous game against Liverpool in the Super Cup. Now, I know what you guys are thinking, Nini. Kante put in a standout performance, a legendary performance. He was by far the best player on the pitch. Lampard's gamble paid off. Now, let me cast your minds back before the game started. Now, there were strong doubts that Kante would feature versus Liverpool. This was due to only playing 70 minutes in the opening game of the season against Man United. Lampard did confirm that Kante even had minor problems after that game, and he confirmed that he'd have to be strongly assessed before he was used against Liverpool. Here's what Lampard had to say.
He's an amazing player, amazing character. He just wants to play and he's humble in his life. But when he gets on the football pitch, he's a machine, and of course he's going to be hugely important. And this is a player that hasn't trained much, had a swollen ankle 2 days ago when we played on Sunday evening, and he's wanted to play today and managed to cover 120 minutes. And I think you saw what he brings to the team today. And there'll be more, because as I say, he hasn't trained much. But yeah, I'm delighted to work with him.
Now, since that game, Kante has picked up an ankle strain and hamstring injuries, and it's clear that Lampard realised that from now on, he'd have to carefully manage the player. Now, let's fast forward all the way to February 2020. The game against Man United. What ends up happening in that game? Kante comes off injured again, and it's later confirmed that he's picked up yet again another abductor injury, his third one in 1 year. Now, I'm no medical expert whatsoever. I'm only doing my research to the best of my knowledge using my degree in Google searches. But from what it says about abductor injuries, it seems like they're formed after prolonged strain and muscle fatigue. But I think to paint the most accurate picture, let's talk about how Kante picked up his first abductor injury. Now we turn our attentions back to his international manager, Didier Deschamps. In October, Kante gets called up by the French national team for the upcoming game against Iceland. Now, before the game even started, Kante breaks down in that warm-up, picking up an abductor strain. Lampard was annoyed at Deschamps as Kante missed out on important games like Newcastle, but at the time, this situation got resolved as it boiled down to a lack of communication. Now let's fast forward all the way to November, and Didier Deschamps risked the wrath of Lampard and his fan base by calling up Kante for more meaningless games. Now, I know that I sound a bit cynical calling these games meaningless because these were European qualifiers. However, this was France playing against Albania and Moldova, the same France national team that has an abundance of talent throughout the country, throughout different leagues as well. They have players that could fill that position left by Kante, and when you realise that you're playing against Albania and Moldova, was Kante really needed to be risked? I don't think so. In the game versus Moldova, Kante played the entire 90 minutes, and it was quite clear that he wasn't fully fit. He had the match stats after his game. This was yet again another underwhelming performance. And from that game on, it was quite clear that something was up because he was still on the bench for that upcoming game against Albania, and surprisingly, France seemed to do pretty well without him, basically winning the game 2-0 in the first half. If you're asking me, Kante's injury history is systematic of overuse and risk. He's been repeatedly rushed back for games where he's never fully recovered, and over time that's bound to naturally weaken the player and cause more muscle fatigue, and once you have that muscle fatigue, then you're open up to future injuries and future issues. Now, yeah, I know that I've spoken about a lot of Kante's injuries, but does this prove that it means that Kante is finally finished? He's finally reached his physical peak, and this proves that it's time to sell. I can't confidently believe this. I can't believe this because it's not as if Kante's picked up a reoccurring, strong, nasty injury like an ACL. I also think that his current injuries could be healed if he's properly given a rest to recover. I personally think that if Kante had the time to fully recover and rest, then most of these injury niggles wouldn't be a thing anymore. Now this image is a popular meme and it shows Kante being machine-like. If you're asking me, maybe this is a mistake, maybe this stereotype is what has forced him to constantly play through injuries, that's forced him to constantly rush back and constantly get injuries. Kante isn't a machine, he's a human being, and for those reasons he should be used responsibly. Let's break down the game time that Kante's had since he signed for us. In the 15-16 season, Kante accumulated 3,193 minutes for Leicester City. In the 16-17 season, he signed for us and, due to a lack of European commitments, he accumulated 3,526 minutes. Now let's turn to the 17-18 season, and naturally due to having European responsibilities and playing more games and getting deeper into cup competitions, Kante picked up 4,177 minutes. Now let's turn our attention to the 18-19 season. Kante picked up even more minutes than previous seasons, picking up 4,185 minutes. In that season, Kante played 37 out of 38 league games, and if it wasn't for injuries, he would have more accumulated minutes. My question is, why didn't the club look after its asset better? Maybe this is indicative of footballing culture and pressures from the top. We know that boards are so cutthroat, they want instant success, and this means that managers are constantly under pressure, not only from the boards, but also from an expectant and consumerist fan base. We all want instant results and instant success, and this forces managers to have to take unnecessary risks to bring those trophies to us. Sarri felt the need to use Kante in nearly every single game that season because he must have felt that without him, then it significantly jeopardizes our chance of winning games. In the end, it worked out better for Sarri personally, but it came at a cost to N'Golo Kante. Now that I've broken down Kante's injury history, and now that we understand his current predicament, I now want to speak about the value that the player brings, and why Kante is a player that we still need to have faith in, we still need to have patience for, and why N'Golo Kante is a world-class player that we'd be absolutely stupid to even consider selling. Now for me, that game against Liverpool showcased everything that N'Golo Kante stands for. Why is Kante a world-class player, and why can't we afford to sell him? Well, that's because Kante is the perfect blend of functionality and technicality, and that's why he's become the renowned world-class midfield player that he rightfully is. In a position like this, you're not always getting the technical abilities to match your defensive work, and this is what makes him such a standout and unique player. Let's look at how Kante's evolved, adapted, and improved his game every single season under every different manager, starting with Antonio Conte in his first season signing for us. Kante's main criticism under Conte was his lack of quality when it came to playing forward passes. In that season, Kante was playing in the pivot alongside Matic, and due to that, we missed the incision and the quality between the lines. And this was a pretty strong weakness at the time because it meant that our use of the ball was very passive and very one-dimensional. As Conte said,
I knew that he made 50 passes and he made 5 mistakes. He has to improve in this. He has to improve. Yeah. No, but
this made sense because at the time when Kante signed for us, he was playing for a Leicester City team that were playing without the ball. When he signed for us, his passing stats went up by nearly twice the amount. And when you play for a club like us, when you play with the ball more, it means that your use of the ball has to have that quality. And in a system where you need to find your attacking players in good areas, if you can't play the ball quick enough to them or with enough quality, that's really going to affect your use of the ball in the final thirds. Conte challenged Kante, and at the end of the season, Kante looked much more comfortable with his use of playing forward passes. Now in comes along Maurizio Sarri, and he challenges Kante to step up his game even more, by asking Kante to provide more goals and more offensive quality in the final third. Now, during that time, a lot of people were in disbelief because Kante at the time was only seen as a defensive mid renowned for his world-class tackling and defensive work rate. What was Sarri talking about? What do you mean that Kante should be focusing on goals? Isn't that a complete contradiction to the player? And if you want goals, why not use more attacking players? Now, here's what Gianfranco Zola, a Chelsea legend, had to say about this matter.
Sometimes even more, okay? So he wants somebody that is confident in getting the ball and playing it, not afraid to play, because he's very much influential in his game. And that is the first reason. Second reason is that Kante is not a sitting midfielder. Although he has played in a midfield two always, in Leicester and first 2 years with Chelsea. In Leicester he was playing with Drinkwater, who was actually the sitting one, and Kante was moving around. He was free to go forward, sideways, backwards, whatever he wanted. And the same was with Chelsea in the second year, when Matic was the sitting one and Kante was doing the same job. So we did speak to Kante about this, and Kante was very happy to play in that position because he liked the position.
Now, this was a great point that Zola touched upon. Kante isn't just a defensive mid. Kante, for me, is more of a defensive box-to-box midfielder. Under Sarri, Kante became even more confident with his use of the ball in the final third. His attacking play became better and had better quality, his press resistance improved, and he was regularly able to spin away from his marker, and his play in tighter spaces improved tenfold. But the biggest improvement that Sarri brought to Kante's game was his movement off the ball in the final third. Here is Sarri praising Kante after his goal against Crystal Palace in the 18-19 season.
I think that he has to think to defend first of all. Then he is improving, especially in movements without the ball, like today. The movement was really very good and was done with the right timing. And for us, it's really very important because when we have to play against opponents very low in density, for the striker it's very difficult to find spaces. For the wingers, the same. And so for us it's very important a movement without the ball with the midfielder. I think that now we have to work on Loftus, on Barkley for this, because especially Loftus is a very great player with the ball, but I think that he can improve a lot in the movement without the ball.
And now, when you look at some of the goals that Kante scored recently for us, could he have scored these same goals 2 years ago? Could he? I don't think so. It was Kante's technical ability that made Sarri feel like he could develop him even more. At the end of that season, Kante accumulated a season record of 5 goals and 4 assists. And now we move on to this season, and if it wasn't for so many reoccurring injuries, I really feel like we were about to see a Kante masterclass. Look at his 2 goals scored against Liverpool and against Man City. These 2 goals are indicative of the improvement that Kante has made in his game. And it's indicative of how this improvement has greatly benefited us and added a new dimension to how we attack. Kante is regularly able to find intelligent positions inside the box and is now a lot more confident at taking scoring opportunities. Now, to end this video with my final closing thoughts, we really have one of the world's best midfield players at this moment in time. Not only is he a genius defensively, but he also has the attacking abilities to match. And it's for these reasons that Barcelona see him as an upgrade to your Vidals, your Rakitiches. They feel like he'll be a massive improvement for the team's tactics. As the Mundo Deportivo article states, Kante is a player who changes the face of a team. Now, for guys that have watched my channel regularly over the past few seasons, you would have heard me constantly remark about the comparisons between Kante and Michael Essien. I've always felt like Kante could make that Michael Essien evolution with his attacking play, and for me, this is what he needed to do to become an even better player and to truly cement himself as one of the world's very best midfield players. When you make this step up for a big team, you can't just be good at one thing. Your quality has to be rounded because your team is going to have to call upon you, and in decisive moments, you need to take accountability and you need to step up and make sure your quality matters. Under Lampard, we are now playing an intense counter-pressing style, and this is the type of game that perfectly complements N'Golo Kante. Look at Liverpool. Imagine if Kante played for Liverpool. Can you imagine how they're going to exponentially improve in their defensive play? As I'm really going to stress, Kante is that perfect blend of functionality and technicality, and that's what separates him from his peers. And to end this video, guys, I'm going to tell you when you're allowed to sell Kante. You're only allowed to sell Kante if you're selling him to a lesser team. Because if you're selling him to a lesser team, well, that says everything, no? You guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. They're my thoughts and opinions on this current N'Golo Kante debate. For me, we need to keep this player at all costs. He really is one of the game's very best midfield players, and he's really going to improve how we play as a team over the next few years. This current pandemic situation is an opportunity for Kante to finally get some rest, because over 4 seasons, when you consider all the games he's played throughout the league, all the friendlies and the international tournaments as well, he's barely had a rest. And if he keeps being abused in this sense, well, we're going to jeopardize his long-term health at this club, and at the end of the day, we'd be the only ones to miss out. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and in the comment section, make sure you give your thoughts and opinions. Let's make this really definitive. Let me know in the comment section whether we should keep Kante, state your reasons why, and if you think it's time to sell Kante, then explain why we should. I mean, really explain why we should. And you guys, on that note, if you liked today's video, then I'm sure you would have smashed that like button already and helped me got 2,000 likes. I'm the EFC. This is Blue Lions TV. I'll see you guys later for some more videos.